Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland once again, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout 4, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Tommy Gun and its unique variants, as well as going over its stats and ranking it. So the Tommy Gun is going to be an early to mid-game submachine gun that you can find throughout the game. The Tommy Gun is pretty iconic, and it at least does look like a Tommy Gun in this game, even if it is a little bit scuffed. It doesn't quite look like a Tommy Gun. There are some weird things about Fallout 4's guns. The Tommy Gun at least is based off of one, but it is very strange. Another weird thing about it is that the default model of the Tommy Gun actually has a cut down stock. I don't know why that is. They did that with a lot of weapons in this game though, where like the hunting rifle's default is that it has a short barrel and no stock on it. Very bizarre. The double barrel also has a cut down barrel and a pistol grip on it, which is a bit weird too. I'm not entirely sure why they decided to do that and have that set as the default. It makes sense to allow players to change up their weapons like that if they would like, but it seems really strange to have it just be the default gun. The Tommy Gun also fires the 45 round, which is correct. This is one of the few guns in the game that does make sense as to the caliber that it shoots, and it can't be modified. For stats for the Tommy Gun, this one does 10 damage per shot, so pretty low damage per shot as you would kind of expect for a full auto weapon like this, although this one is really low, and the Tommy Gun can only be full auto. You can't put it into semi-auto. This does 127 damage per second, so pretty decent damage per second. Has a 107 for range, which is pretty good. 63 accuracy, not really the most accurate weapon. Costs 35 action points to be using in VATS, which is quite a lot. This has a 50 round magazine to begin with, and then this weighs a whopping 12.7 weight, which is a very heavy gun. Although not entirely unreasonable for the Tommy Gun. This is one of the few weapons where the weight is actually kind of close to the real-life counterpart in Fallout 4, where usually they really overestimate the amount of weight that weapons are. 12.7 is still heavier than what a Tommy Gun should be, maybe not when it's fully loaded. And with these modifications with like the cut-down stock, and it seems like a cut-down barrel, it should be even lighter than this, but at least it's somewhere in the ballpark of what a Tommy Gun could weigh, so there is that. For the general pros of the Tommy Gun, this one does have pretty common ammo. The 45 is fairly common throughout the early game. Vendors tend to sell a lot of it, and a lot of weapons tend to use it, so it's not hard to find. And this one does have pretty decent DPS. It's not the best DPS, but it's pretty decent overall. The major cons of this weapon, though, are that it does very low damage per shot, even more so when it's compared to the other weapons that use 45. So there are quite a few of them, and that's going to be one of the major hurdles the Tommy Gun has to kind of get over, because if you find other weapons that use a similar round, you're probably just going to put them in that, aside from the Tommy Gun. As well as this weapon can be pretty ammo hungry, and if you get this early on, you might run through all of your 45 rounds, so that can be a little bit annoying. For the perks for damage, you're definitely going to want to take Commando for this. That's really the only perk that really gives you more damage. There are other ones like Lone Wanderer can give you more damage if you're alone. For an overall rating for the Tommy Gun, I'm going to put this thing into D tier. I think it's one of the weakest weapons in Fallout 4. It's just not really that good, and it really struggles mostly because there are so many different weapons that use the 45 round. So primarily like the combat rifle and the radium rifle can both be basically better Tommy Guns. They can have better damages, they can have better add-ons. They can be semi-auto, so they get more value per shot out of your bullets, which kind of helps there. They just kind of do the Tommy Gun's job better in pretty much every way, besides just having a large capacity and holding down the trigger. There are quite a few attachments that you can put on the Tommy Gun, and here's the ones that I would recommend for a modded version of the Tommy Gun. So for the receiver, I would recommend either a hardened or a powerful receiver, depending on what you want. If you want the most damage, just go for powerful. If you want armor piercing, then go for the hardened. Both are okay. Armor piercing is actually pretty good on the Tommy Gun since it doesn't have very high damage per shot, so that does actually help it out against humanoid enemies that will be wearing armor. For a barrel, you can either go with the standard barrel or the light barrel. I usually just go with the light one because it lessens the weight on the gun and it doesn't really affect the Tommy Gun that much. So either one though, they're both decent enough. The recoil compensating stock, this will just get you the best amount of recoil reduction for it, and I tend to be using the Tommy Gun, just hip firing it, so that works for me. The large quick eject drum mag is what I'd recommend for a magazine. You might as well just go for the bigger mag and the faster reload on it. I find that one to be good, although if you're fine with the 50 round drum, then you could just have that and put the quick eject on there and you'll be good to go. For sights, pick whatever you'd like. Sights are your choice. Glow sights can be pretty good. And either of the red dots can be pretty good too. Even just iron sights are okay enough for the Tommy gun. Like I said, a lot of the time I'm just hip firing this, so I don't use the sights too very often. And then for a barrel attachment, I would recommend the suppressor because that one's actually the best if you have the operator's perk where you get more damage from suppressors. If you don't have that, then the muzzle brake or the compensator are perfectly fine. The Tommy gun modded out is better, but it still runs into the same problems that the regular Tommy gun has, so I'm also going to put the modded version into D tier. It's mostly just that it gets beat out by things like the combat rifle and things like the radium rifle, which are just a better use of your 45 rounds. Now, if you have a bunch of 45 rounds, then the Tommy gun can actually be pretty decent because you can just spray it into enemies. You're still probably going to want a legendary Tommy gun, though, that can take advantage of its high rate of fire. And for that, let's talk about the unique version of the Tommy gun. I guess there is technically two unique versions of the Tommy gun, because one is the Silver Shrouds Tommy gun, which is just a regular Tommy gun. It just looks nicer. So that one, I'm not going to put its own graphic up because it's basically just the Tommy gun, but it's more cleaned up. The other unique one is called the Spray and Pray, which you can buy. You have to buy this one from Cricket. She is a wandering merchant. You can usually find her outside of Diamond City, though. And this weapon definitely displays why legendary effects are so strong in Fallout 4, and why they're more of a determining factor than necessarily the weapon itself. Because the Spray and Pray for base stats has 31 damage per shot, 394 damage per second, about 3 times the amount of damage that the regular Tommy gun has. This one has 77 range, 69 accuracy, costs 43 action points to be using, so it's even worse than VATS, holds 100 rounds in it, and weighs 19 weight. That thing is super heavy. I don't know why it weighs that much. The Spray and Pray has the unique effect of Explosive on it, which Explosive grants you extra damage on every single shot. This causes an explosion that deals damage to everything around it. That is why this one is so strong, and why this one is considered one of the best weapons in Fallout 4, because this can take advantage of the high rate of fire, and you can stack these explosives on top of one another. Because even if you're not really killing enemies, you're likely staggering them so much that they can't fight back thanks to the high rate of fire of this. And this one does boost your damage up pretty significantly. The damage can also be buffed up even further if you already spec'd into the Demo Expert perk, which makes it so you deal extra damage from explosives. This also counts for explosive weapons. And this is why legendary effects are so strong in this game, because it turns an otherwise pretty garbage gun in the game, the Tommy gun is just not very good in Fallout 4, into an insanely powerful gun that makes actually pretty good use of its ammo, and it definitely makes good use of the DPS that it gets. The Spray and Pray also has a few attachments to it as well, where it has the powerful receiver already installed, which is really good, a standard barrel, which I usually swap out for the light barrel, recoil compensating stock, so a really good stock, the large drum magazine, but I'll usually switch this out for the quick eject one, a reflex sight, and a suppressor. So it's already pretty much modded out as strong as it's going to get, or very close to, where the other ones are just kind of quality of life upgrades to the Spray and Pray. So it does have a lot going for it. So the Spray and Pray on my tier list, I'd put this thing all the way up into S tier because it is so good just because of the legendary effect. This can also be a common theme with fully automatic weapons. Like if you got a bleed Tommy gun, then this thing would be absolutely insane. Anything with bleed is really strong, but if it's full auto, it's even stronger. And same thing goes for a couple other legendary effects. So if you can get a Tommy gun like this, then it is really, really strong. If you can't, then it's not going to be quite as good. Tell me your thoughts on the Tommy gun in Fallout 4 and its unique variants. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody!